This is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message. I'll get back to you.
For nearly 50 years, TV's greatest private eye has been meaning to return our calls on NBC's comedy drama, The Rockford Files. Celebrated by fans and critics alike, The Rockford Files redefined both the detective genre and what viewers should expect in a lead protagonist. But beyond its charismatic star, the show also produced many memorable side characters, some of whom were given a chance at spin-off glory with 3 backdoor pilots. And these aren't your typical backdoor pilots, mind you. In stark contrast to most potential spin-offs, these episodes are actually pretty good. We've got big stars, medium stars, car chases, Nazis getting punched, and a famous TV writer's first draft of his magnum opus. But each backdoor pilot was not bound for similar success. Who hit their mark and who disappeared in a cloud of dust? Find out on Behind the Backdoor Pilot, The Rockford Files.
Oh, I can see you're gonna keep us in stitches.
When it came to investigating crimes on 1970s prime time, there was only one sector you went to: private. Coming out of Vietnam and Watergate with a cynical eye towards the establishment, TV viewers were ready to put their trust into problem solvers outside of America's corrupt institutions.
If the police won't help us, we'll simply have to take the law into our own hands.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing that these days.
TV PIs were a dime a dozen during the Ford and Carter years, bringing us names like Cannon, Banachek, Barnaby Jones, and Harry O. But one private eye soared above the cheap suits and cold coffee to become regarded as the greatest television PI ever: Jim Rockford, indelibly played by James Garner.
Who you working for?
Well, that's confidential. Larry Kirkhoff.
Created by producer Roy Huggins and serial litterbug Stephen J. Cannell, The Rockford Files was a Friday night staple on NBC where it earned heaps of critical acclaim, 18 Emmy nominations, and 5 wins. Thanks in large part to Garner, who defined the role with everyman charm and world-weary wit.
You can't be that stupid.
Oh, sure I can. I've been doing stupid things all day.
The polar opposite of the macho noir he-men willing to dive headfirst into danger, Jim preferred the path of least resistance, free of threat, turmoil, and day-to-day annoyances.
There aren't any heroes. They die young. See? His gun is deadly. Mine's in a cookie jar.
An ex-con willing to skirt the law if it was morally correct, Rockford's methods would place him in the neutral good slot between Columbo's lawful good and Dr. Richard Kimball's chaotic good. He joined the likes of Elliot Gould's Philip Marlowe and Darren McGavin's Kolchak as a beaten-down investigator who always broke even at the bottom.
Why don't you go home and sleep it off?
Yeah, right. I'll go sleep it off.
His fee? $200 a day plus expenses, which, even before adjusting for inflation, would make him one of the highest-paid freelancers today. Nevertheless, Rockford lived a very frugal life in a Malibu beachside trailer. Then again, it's within walking distance of a dynamite taco stand, so expect a hefty bump on Zillow. As iconic as the character was, so was his ride. A Sierra Gold Pontiac Firebird Esprit, a car Rockford brandished like a gunslinger twirling a revolver. The cheaper sibling to the flashier Firebird formula, the Esprit model was specifically chosen by Garner to reflect Rockford's humbler persona. But like the character, it hid much more. Because what Garner drove during production was actually a Firebird formula, remodeled to look like an Esprit, which the actor took full advantage of. Garner was considered one of the best stunt drivers in Hollywood and popularized the stylish J-turn, later redubbed the Rockford. Cannell was so worried about Garner's aggressive stunt driving that production tried replacing him with a series of stunt drivers, but nobody could match Garner's skills, keeping him in the driver's seat.
You all right?
All right.
Good.
And what's a road trip without a killer track? The Rockford theme, composed by Mike Post and Pete Carpenter, hit number 10 on the Billboard charts in 1975 and even went on to win a Grammy. And it's popped up in everything from news radio.
Hi, this is Jimmy James. I'm not in right now, but leave a message. I'll get back to you.
To the all Marlon Wayans sibling movie, Sextuplets.
Take it away, Jack.
Joining Garner on the recurring cast first and foremost is Noah Beery Jr. as Jim's dad, Rocky. Often comprising the funniest and most heartfelt moments in the show, the scenes between Garner and Beery have a charm and spark rarely seen between TV fathers and sons.
Beth's in jail.
Beth, what's she in jail for?
3 days.
We also have Sergeant Dennis Becker, Jim's only tenuous connection to the LAPD, often called upon when things get too hot.
Hey, Dennis, I dropped by to ask you. No. Are you going to let me finish?
Whatever it is, it's no.
I got a couple of tickets to the Lakers game tomorrow night.
No.
Then there's Beth Davenport, Jim's lawyer and occasional girlfriend.
It'd be a lot easier if I could look at you when I'm talking to you.
Not for me.
But a good PI is nothing without his wretched hive of scum and villainy. And nobody fills that role better than Angel Martin, Jim's old prison buddy, and the untrustworthiest man you'll ever meet.
This here proposition is in a real kind of gray area, legally speaking.
But the Rockford Rogues Gallery runs deep and contains some pretty recognizable faces, like Rita Moreno, Tom Selleck, and 2 guys who were given a chance at their own backdoor pilot during Rockford's 3rd season.
You and me. Like that.
Like that, huh?
Right.
Both introduced in Season 2, Isaac Hayes as Gandalf Fitch and Louis Gossett Jr. as Marcus Hayes were immediate hits among fans. Gandy Fitch, a former debt collector turned ex-con, ruled the cell block he shared with Rockford, whom he gave the catty nickname Rockfish.
I never did like you, Rockfish.
Well, you were never too high on my list either.
On the other end of the spectrum is Marcus Hayes, Jim's former parole officer and frequent slinger of lies and exaggerations.
Oh, come on, Jim. What did I ever do to you?
What did you ever do to me?
Okay, now forget that one time.
Fortunately, his cons were more believable than his hairpiece. Together with Gandy's muscle and Marcus's mouth, not to mention the collective swagger of 20 men, this team-up would make for a formidable backdoor pilot in Season 3. And surely a wrecking crew of this caliber would earn an equally bombastic episode title. Something explosive, something compelling, something matrimonial. Yes, if ever an episode title needed a helpful thumbnail image, this would be it. But it's by design, as both the title and the wedding-related scenes are red herrings meant to keep the viewer guessing. As for our A story, it kicks off with Gandy looking for a new line of work after the bar he's bouncing for starts cracking down on unnecessary roughness.
Hey, Rockfish, you know what you need?
Yeah. A seamstress.
A partner.
But being the lone wolf he is, Rockford politely declines.
I just don't work that way. I like to keep my business quiet.
And looks to enlist PI entrepreneur Marcus Hayes as Gandy's new benefactor. After a winning first impression,
I don't like him.
Gandy and Marcus embark on their new mismatched partnership in the back of Marcus's extended trial period limo.
I like your style, Gandy. Direct, forthright, no misunderstandings.
Yeah, I know. I got pluck, right?
And it's here that Gandy comes up with a new nickname for Marcus.
Just another Gabby.
Gabby and Gandy. Could that have been a punchier title? Hard to say. But that raises an interesting question. Can a buttoned-down smooth talker ever collaborate, let alone cooperate, with a fiery loose cannon? And could that pairing make for an entertaining dynamic? Both the Rockford Files and Tango and Cash answer with an emphatic yes. With Gandy off his back, Jim continues working on a county probate case, tracking down the heir to a $600,000 fortune.
Bingo.
A case that Gandy inadvertently blabs over lunch.
Some guy named O'Hurley, he croaked and left $600,000 in a suitcase, and he's got a brother.
Marcus considers the business potential and tries to beat Jim to locating the heir, with a 40% finder's fee as its own reward. But little do any of them know that the mob's also in hot pursuit, as the money technically was theirs. And if they happen to kill the guy who helped steal it, all the better. Like an open-world RPG, each party takes their own unique path towards completing their mission. For Jim's +10 charisma and resourcefulness, it's a scam involving memorial flowers.
I suppose I should look at the accounts and see what you've been supplying, and I may want to make a change.
Of course.
The mob chooses espionage and taps the probate office phone. As for Marcus and Gandy, their dungeon-crawling adventure unfortunately leads them into a bona fide Nazi tavern. A chilling reminder of the prevailing sickness of theme restaurants. Marcus does his best to talk his way out of the situation, but that's not what any of us want to see. There we go. Yes, before Indiana Jones or Swing Kids, the Rockford Files tapped into the near-universal love of seeing Nazis get pummeled. Getting the info they needed, Marcus and Gandy flee the scene and eventually make their way to the eponymous Polish wedding, where their target is booked as the wedding accordion player. And as a bonus, we get a glimpse of the wedding song trends of 1977.
Don't forget the song.
Oh, I won't. I've got it. It's Raindrops.
It's their song.
It's everybody's.
And B.J. Thomas catches a stray. The jig is up once all three parties converge toward the one-man band, and the room turns into a Marx Brothers comedy with a wheezing accordion, wedding cake fumble, and all-out bedlam among the well-dressed elite. Gandy again helps clean up the trash and finds Marcus's secret off button.
How do you shut this dude up?
Put him to sleep.
And everything will...
But with little room to explain their way out of this one, our three heroes end up in the back of a police cruiser. Just like in Attack the Block.
Hey, why'd you always arrest the wrong people?
Marcus relates to Jim how Gandy would make a useful partner, to which Gandy replies,
Shut up, Gabby.
Gabby and Gandy. Sounds like a puppet show.
Okay, fine, we'll go with Polish Wedding. But misleading titles aside, Gabby and Gandy are an electrifying pair and make for a great watch. And with lots of screen time for the star, the episode feels less like a backdoor pilot and more like your weekly Rockford episode. It currently stands at a strong 8.3 on IMDb, which makes NBC passing on the spinoff a tragic mystery. In an essay on the failed spinoff, Nathan Ward of Crime Reads put it best. At a time when black actors on crime dramas often played pimps, streetwalkers, drug dealers, or addict informants, this attempt at a spin-off series with two black detectives was ambitious. That Gabby and Gandy was not picked up is disappointing. This was Gossett's final appearance on the Rockford Files, but Isaac Hayes would return the following season for the episode Second Chance, where he guest stars alongside real-life duet partner Dionne Warwick. Wonder if she saw that coming.
I think that anyone watching this show can benefit from speaking to a psychic.
Rockford's next attempt at a spin-off required an unusual commingling of TV universes. In the fall of '76, NBC aired a TV movie pilot called Richie Brockelman, The Missing 24 Hours. Co-written by Stephen Cannell and Stephen Bochco of Dennis Franz's Butt fame, this standalone 90-minute special was an attempt to launch a series focused on an eager 22-year-old upstart PI played by the then 30-year-old Dennis Dugan. Centered around Brockelman's first case involving an amnesiac Suzanne Plachette, the special earned only middling ratings and wasn't picked up for a series. However, as months went by, there was still some interest in the character. So in season 4, Cannell and NBC decided to bring Brockelman into Rockford's world for a 2-hour finale entitled The House on Willis Avenue. And fair warning, if you're a fan of, hey, that guy, drinking games, you will need a stomach pump by the end of the episode. Because, hey, there's Adam Cartwright. Hey, there's Johnny Fever. Hey, there's Perry White. Hey, there's Kolchak's boss. Hey, there's Mrs. Elkins. Hey, there's Paul Pfeiffer's grandfather. For the sake of everyone's liver, just watch for fun. The episode begins at the end of a Level 5 snooping mission by private investigator Joe Tooley. Stumbling upon something big, he teases a bombshell discovery with his client Al Stever, played by WKRP DJ and head of the class teacher Howard Hessman.
But you ain't gonna believe it. It's spooky.
And like some sap on the X-Files who's learned too much, he's immediately apprehended by agents of unknown origin. Then we get the first of many badass one-liners from Pernell Roberts.
That's nice. Page 1 right out of the book.
But before you can say Miranda rights, we're off to Joe Tooley's funeral, filled with all the PIs he's mentored through the years.
How you doing, Rockford? Getting any?
But something doesn't sit right with Jim about the way Tooley died.
Joe got hit by a gas truck on the freeway? He never used the freeway.
Rockford's not the only one who smells something fishy about Tooley's death. Enter Richie Brockelman, who uses a Rockfordian ruse to gain access to Tooley's coroner report. The two cross paths during their investigations, and Richie tells Jim of his skepticism about Tooley's cause of death.
Somebody was hit by a truck, not necessarily Joe Tooley is the thing.
That's enough to push Rockford into a situation he usually tries to avoid: a team-up. Meanwhile, the agents who nab Tooley also catch fellow PI Vern St. Cloud snooping around Tooley's office. He's trafficked to an underground parking garage and interrogated by the evil data security CEO Garth McGregor via a wireless car-to-car polygraph, a feature that didn't come standard until the 1982 kit.
Michael, that man is lying.
Not now, kid.
After a sob story about hunting for leads and a double hernia, they decide to let him go. Cue Purnell's acid bite.
And when they fix that hernia, be sure they don't let any guts fall out. You're running kind of short as it is.
Trapper John M. Damn. Team Rockelman makes its way to the Willis House address and stumbles upon an industrial AC unit which, shouldn't be there.
Look, Mr. Rockford, I'd really like to work on this with you. I mean, either you let me in or I do it myself.
But we do things my way, all right?
Hey, just lay it on the line. I'm all yours, boss.
But Browncoat and Peach Fuzz dig too deep for the comfort of the private security goons who try to take the duo out permanently. Richie holds his own as Jim's understudy and evades the henchmen. But cracks begin to form in our lead's already shaky alliance.
What do we do now?
I don't know. Why don't you come up with something for a change? You need a mentor. Go back to college, find an old criminology professor.
But Richie doesn't want an academic. He wants Rockford, and drops some hints for Jim to adopt him like a surrogate PI dad.
I just think that sometimes it's good to sit down and talk things out like you and I have been doing.
We then get to see McGregor's full capacity for evil, using his data center's master key to plant false arrests and allegations into Rockford's police files.
Yes, sir, Mr. Rockford looks very unsavory.
Facing a life on the lam, Rockford decides to use himself as bait to get face-to-face with the enemy.
I have a hunch that if he grabs me, I'm going to learn a lot more than Vern St. Cloud did.
Rockford triggers the alarm in Tooley's office, and Purnell Roberts reminds us he missed his calling as a one-liner action hero.
Oh, I can see you're going to keep us in stitches.
Detained and held against his will aboard a luxury chopper, Rockford learns about Tooley's fate.
He's currently involved in the citrus industry. He's fertilizing a grove in Northern California.
And although this is a backdoor pilot for Dennis Dugan, James Garner gets the big soapbox speech regarding data mining and privacy overreach that's as relevant today as it will be when the sun burns out.
Private security companies with private police powers, companies who employ ex-cops and FBI agents. What are you up to, Mr. McGregor?
By nearly 2 decades, this episode beats 1995's The Net as the, God, they were talking about this even then, benchmark.
Our whole world is sitting there on a computer.
You're tapped into 15 or 20 computers. You're in the private information market.
Your DMV records, credit cards.
You can add or subtract from somebody's credit rating. You can infer somebody's a deadbeat.
Social security, medical history.
Stomp somebody into the ground using computer technology as a club.
It's all right there. Just begging for somebody to screw with. They've done it to me, and you know what? They're gonna do it to you.
To my knowledge, none of this is illegal.
Well, it sure as hell ought to be.
That was one too many pokes at the private security hornet's nest.
Welcome to the citrus industry, Mr. Rockford.
But thanks to Richie's ability to hide and be real quiet, Rockford commandeers the chopper and flies them to the mountains.
I guess people underestimate you all the time, don't they, son?
Oh, yeah, I count on it.
That night, the duo infiltrates the subterranean facility where everyone's private records are held and duke their way out when their cover's blown, punching not 1, not 2, but 3 night watchmen, underscoring Rockford's hard-lined ANWAB stance. Richie yells fire in the crowded foot chase.
Calling all police, all fire units. In Dead Rock Canyon, there's a monstrous fire.
And is all ready to squeal once they arrive. Back home, Jim, Rocky, Richie, and Stever hear about the swift arrests of McGregor and his goons on the expository news.
Arrested with Mr. McGregor were Derek Halstead and Franz Gunderson, both heads of large European security firms.
All right.
And a warning about the danger if data mining and privacy overreach go unchecked.
But why does a company install a secret, underground computer center right in the middle of one of the world's largest cities?
Here.
High fives all around. Jim invites Richie over anytime for a PI to PI chat.
Well, it looks like you found a place to come and talk, son.
Oh, what the hey, Pop.
This looks like the beginning of a beautiful, shared time slot. Richie Brockelman Private Eye premiered in March 1978 in Rockford's time slot. Garner and Dugan recorded a few TV spots to give fans the heads up.
My friend Jim here is letting me have his time slot for 5 weeks. Well, not exactly letting me have it, I sort of took it. Anything you want to say?
Go right ahead, it's your time slot.
Well, not exactly, just for 5 weeks.
Basically, it's Rockford Year 1. The series had the junior detective taking on foes like Vegas con artists and corporate embezzlers. The recurring cast included Hill Street Blues star Barbara Bosson and Clark Griswold's dad, John Randolph. Mike Post and Pete Carpenter returned for the show's theme song, but Billboard bound it was not. Unfortunately, without a hit show to pair with it, NBC aired only 5 episodes of Brockelman to dismal ratings. And to this day, the show isn't available outside of bootleg recordings.
Oh, come on!
While episodes of Richie Brockelman occasionally aired within Rockford's syndication package, the quasi-spin-off achieved neither the popularity nor the acclaim of the show it used as a launching pad. Which is a shame because Dugan is great as Brockelman, a character that could have easily been Rockford's Scrappy Doo if Dugan didn't play the role so well. But Dennis Dugan did okay since he went on to direct tons of Adam Sandler movies. Come to think of it, Richie Brockelman does sound like the name of a Sandler character. Of the 3 backdoor pilot attempts, the house on Willis Avenue was the most successful on paper. But there's one more that carries far, far more cultural significance. Cannell & Company made one last spin-off attempt in what would penultimately become the second-to-last episode of the Rockford Files. And scripting duties were given to none other than the mighty David Chase. The future Sopranos creator was already a seasoned TV scribe by 1979, having written for Kolchak and the Robert Wagner PI series, Switch. And with 18 Rockford scripts under his belt at that point, Chase had the chops to make his 19th episode a success. Which he did. Kinda. Because what might have died on the vine in the Rockford universe would one day change the TV landscape. Opening on a studio backlot meant to look like the East Coast, it doesn't take long for this Rockford episode to feel a little off. And sure enough, Chase is treading familiar stomping grounds and introduces a Chekhov's coffin that'll have to wait to be addressed. But here's where we meet up with our potential breakout stars. 2 guys, Eugene and Mickey. What kind of guys, you ask?
You tell him there's a couple of guys out here can help with this problem he's having? He's a couple of guys. Took care of a very unpleasant matter for you. A couple of guys ain't afraid to jump in with both feet, get their hands dirty. A couple of guys who would like to be remembered.
So it's settled then. As with the previous backdoor pilots, Mickey and Eugene are returning characters, having been introduced in the season 5 episode The Jersey Bounce, also penned by Chase. But for this outing, our leads have given up on their violent coke binges and instead opt for a kinder, gentler brand of scumbag, more suitable for prime time.
Quite frankly, my feelings are hurt here. No, hey, that's just the way I feel about it.
Mickey and Eugene are gangster trainees, hoping to one day break into the lucrative world of organized crime. To put it more cruelly, these guys wish they were Paulie and Christopher.
Oh!
But being neither wheelers nor dealers, their efforts are less racketeering and more Mary Kay.
See that? Hong Kong. It's better than that Japanese stuff.
Too bad. They were only a couple of decades shy of a real hot seller. Mickey laments their non-status in the criminal underworld.
We ain't operators in this neighborhood. We ain't connected up right. We don't have respect.
But Eugene suggests they climb the mafia ladder by fixing a little vandalism matter plaguing the former crime boss, Mr. Lombard.
We get the creeps responsible and bing, we have Lombard's attention.
And if you figure bing just means bada bing but faster, it sounds like a solid plan. They get the lowdown on a car seen scoping out Lombard's house from their own version of Huggy Bear, and go on a stakeout to catch the prankster throwing dead animals onto Lombard's yard. And as luck would have it, they spot the carcass-tossing hoodlum and tackle all 80 pounds of him off his Schwinn.
It's all over for you, Jack.
Inside, they deliver the little delinquent to Lombard, who no longer deals in scrapes, but in scripture.
Sports and the scriptures.
Yes, the former mob boss might have a couple of marbles loose, a la Uncle Junior.
Can I have some ice cream?
Wait there.
Okay.
Reinterpreting what it means to be a godfather, Lombard informs our two mooks he's no longer in the mob business.
I don't wield power anymore. He wields his power over me.
Finding themselves back at the bottom rung, Eugene throws a pity party that only Paulie Walnuts can put into perspective.
I work like a slave, and what do I get? Nothing.
You ever feel like nothing good was ever gonna happen to you?
Yeah, and nothing did. So what?
But things go from blah to worse for our junior Goombas, as the kid they tackled is none other than Anthony Jr., the misfit son of the North Jersey mob boss Tony.
Anthony.
You might be vaguely familiar with their rebooted versions.
Where? Where does he learn these things?
Of course, Proto Carmela defends the boy in dialogue that could have easily been dubbed by Edie Falco.
He is 12. It is an age of transition.
Transition? He's gonna transition his way right into military school if he keeps this up.
And he means it too, either in this life or the next.
I look like a total jerk-off.
All yelled out, Tony forgives his son and orders a more physical message for Lombard, Mickey, and Eugene. But wait, aren't we forgetting somebody? Don't worry, this episode seems to have two.
You gotta be kidding me.
Jim Rockford is quickly dispensed of in this episode, spending the majority of the first half off-screen at a police station after his car and belongings were stolen at the Newark airport.
Stole my car.
Finally out, he makes his way to the home of the client he was meeting with, Lombard's daughter, Renee. Just in time to really get involved with the A story. And deliver the episode's key line.
Welcome to New Jersey.
In the aftermath, Rockford informs Renee that he'd prefer to keep his nose clean and intact, so he's stepping off the mob-tied case. Hitting another brick wall with Lombard, Mickey and Eugene decide to take their lead on the shooter's car to Tony, leveraging themselves back into the mafia mix.
Tony Martin is Mr. North Jersey. We could come out of this in a very strong position.
And find themselves face to face with the father of the kid they manhandled.
Mr. Martin, let me say first that we didn't know.
Thanks to some fancy moves and a limo doing 15 on an empty road, the unwise guys make a quick getaway. But let's check back in on Rockford, see how he's... I guess those boardwalk t-shirts don't lie.
Give me some help!
But the feud between Lombard and Tony reaches a boiling point when Tony and his men kidnap Renee. And we learn it's all to pressure Lombard into convincing the church to bury Tony's mobbed-up cousin Vincent in a Catholic cemetery. Typical family dispute. Realizing the jam Lombard's in, Mickey and Eugene try kidnapping the corpse in an effort to make a hostage exchange for Renee. They're caught in the act by Tony and his henchmen.
Step back from my cousin.
And a brawl ensues.
Tony! They're both down!
Jim and Lombard arrive with the police in tow, and Renee is rescued safe and sound. And the episode ends with Mickey, Eugene, and Jim wondering what adventures lay ahead.
Yeah, anything can happen. Absolutely. That's how guys like us operate.
With an abrupt cut to black, it's up to the viewer's interpretation as to what happened next.
Don't stop.
Eugene did get made eventually. Actor Greg Antonacci went on to portray Phil Leotardo's right-hand man, Butch DiConcini, in the final season of The Sopranos.
It's been done before, and it was wrong then.
As for the backdoor pilot, NBC decided to pass on just a couple of guys and took them on a nice, quiet boat trip. But that's not to undercut the sheer novelty of it all. A dark humor drama about a mafia family from the pen of David Chase decades before The Sopranos? That alone deserves one curious watch. Still, saddled with a mediocre 6.2 on IMDb, the episode has the lowest rating of the entire Rockford series.
Incredible. You hear that? Incredible!
It's no coincidence that the least loved Rockford Files episode has the least amount of James Garner, but it's also a reflection of how revered The Sopranos is that its earliest incarnation looks even worse when mentioned in the same breath. Kinda like its follow-up. But David Chase has said he learned an invaluable lesson while working with Stephen J. Cannell, remarking, "Your hero can do a lot of bad things. He can make all kinds of mistakes, can be lazy, and look like a fool, as long as he's the smartest guy in the room and he's good at his job. That's what we ask of our heroes." A character formula that could easily apply to both Jim and Tony. The Rockford Files ended its initial run on January 10th, 1980, and made several returns in the mid-90s in TV movie form. But with Garner older and creakier due to a life of harsh stunt work, not to mention the loss of Noah Beery as Rocky, the revivals never achieved the same spark as the original series.
As opposed to the literally unwatchable reboot starring Dermot Mulrooney that NBC attempted in 2010. Unwatchable both because the pilot never aired and it's reportedly terrible. The show was set to star Mulrooney as Rockford, with Alan Tudyk as Dennis Becker and Beau Bridges as Rocky. But the series was quickly killed after a disastrous pilot, with blame ranging from poor direction to a miscast lead.
But the real reason for a Rockford failure remains the same. The less James Garner you have, the less people are interested.
Well, me too. Why don't we just wrap it up and go home?
Nearly a half a century since it premiered, The Rockford Files continues to justify its status as one of the greatest shows in television history, able to go toe-to-toe with the prestigious TV it helped inspire.
Thank you.
Now, if he'd just return our calls.
I'll get back to you.
Thanks for watching, subscribe to Atomic Abe, and click the notification bell to be alerted when new episodes are released. Like Behind the Backdoor Pilot? Check out our video on the 7 potential spin-offs that Murder, She Wrote tried to make stick.
I made a deal with the TV people.